You guys have no short of experience to look back on, obviously, with him last year. What are your thoughts heading into the game? What do you think you guys are going to have to do to slow him down particularly?
He's a veteran, experienced player, does a really good job with ad-libbing on a bunch of different plays. He always knows where to go with the ball, very well coached. The biggest thing for us is we had him bottled up a lot last year and weren't able to get him on the ground. So we have to do a better job of, when we have opportunities to get to him, to capitalize on those opportunities and making sure that no matter what defense that we're in, that we're accounting for him, in those run game possibilities, whether it's a design run or, one of those plays that he's making outside of the pocket. He's really good. He's slippery. He's going to make some of those plays. That's part of his game. He's seen everything that you could possibly throw at him with the experience that he has. So for us, this is going to be about being disciplined in everything that we do.
Doug, it seems like the guys that they have around the two really good receivers, the tight end and the running back, is that just, formidable as it you can get for a week one opponent?
Oh, absolutely. Having some past experience with these guys and playing them last year, I think Coach Traylor and their staff do an excellent job of, schematically and getting those guys ready to play. They play hard. They play disciplined. They don't give up a lot of negative plays, and the quarterback makes them great on the ad-lib in those plays. So the receiving core and the running backs, they can be deadly when they get in space and they can run after the catch and make things happen. And I think up front, they're really big. So, they have a couple new pieces, but a lot of experience at every position on offense. So we're going to have to do a really good job of making sure that we're in the right place at the right time.
How beneficial is it to having game film on that from last year to prepare for the opener Saturday?
I think it helps just because we actually played them, and we're not just looking at some of the things that they may have done against other opponents. But I think every year, you have a lot of different pieces, and they've added pieces. We're pretty much totally different in a lot of positions from a personnel standpoint. So I think all of that matters, and having a little bit of familiarity with the opponent. But I think no matter how you cut it, every year is new challenges, and then you throw in a quality opponent on the first game on both sides. I think it's going to be a challenge regardless, because obviously there'll be a lot of new things that we haven't seen, and they'll be sprinkling in new players and new offensive coordinator, a bunch of different things for them. So, a lot of the game comes down to game time adjustments and, our players seeing things and being able to react.
How much better do you feel about the overall depth of this defense, and what kind of difference does that make, going into a year?
Yeah, I like our guys. I think we got a lot of new pieces that are going to help us in a lot of different ways. We got a bunch of big body types that we haven't had in the past, but that doesn't always mean better, because if you look at some of the guys that we've had that are smaller in stature, we're really good players and they're playing at the next level. But I like the camaraderie that we have and the depth in positions. I think, there's still a lot of unseen, because we've been coaching these guys since the spring and some of them since the summer, some of the new pieces that we have. But we haven't had them in game time situations. So you learn a lot about guys and how they react and how they play, in those critical moments of the game. And, what kind of competitor you are is always gauged by, when your best is needed. Can you come in and be the best for the team at that point in time? So I'm excited to see these guys play. They've done really well in practice, and I think there's some guys that we've added, plus some young guys that have continued to develop that can help us win football games.
What specifically do you want to see from this unit this week?
Physicality, playing hard, assignment and alignment, all of the base football things that you need to be successful. First game, there's always going to be some jitters, there's always going to be some unknowns, but those things kind of carry over from a consistency perspective in how we prepare and how we play. You want to see those things translate from practice into the game.
Do you think you're going to substitute more this week with that heat than a normal game, like for instance last year in the Alamo Dome?
I think, up front, we've always subbed a lot. We try to play 10 to 12 guys, and we've been that way in the secondary, since I've been here. We're a little limited at times, obviously, at the end of last year with depth. But we want to play as many guys as we can, and our message to the defense is no matter what role you have, no matter if you play 3 plays, 10 plays, or the whole game, that whatever your role is, to maximize that for this week. So everybody's role will be different, and we'll play as many guys as we can that are ready to play and that fit what we're trying to do and that we think can help us win.
Then what did you learn from last year, just defensively? You go from y'all had a lot of personnel changes and guys going off to the NFL, but was there something that stood out from that you sort of carry over to this year?
Yeah, I think it's a multitude of things. I think the first thing is obviously personnel, and what can our personnel do, and how can we put those guys in positions to effectively make plays to help us win football games. And I think situational football is something that we focused hard on. If you look at the games last year, it was a lot of them were nail biters, a bunch of overtime games, a bunch of games that came down to the last few drives. So all of those things that may be minor in detail, focus on all of those different things and really teaching and making sure our players understand in those situations exactly what we need to do and why it's important to do it that way.
On paper, what would you say is the strength of this team?
Man, that's hard to say. I think we're really good up front still. And I think we have, depth at all the other positions at linebacker in the secondary. But there's more players who haven't had the experience of playing at the University of Houston. We still have a core group of guys that lead those positions up front, like Nelson Caesar and Chidozie, Sed's back, and a bunch of those different type of guys who understand exactly what we want to do to have banked reps in our system and our scheme. So I can't give you one exact on that, but we want to play physically, we want to play fast. That's what we're built off of, and everything else kind of takes care of itself, in my opinion.
What can you tell us about A.J. Halsey?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a chance to be a special player. He was a freshman All-American last year, and he's a Houston kid that came back home, and we're really excited about him. I think he does a lot of things well, and I think that he's very mature for his age, and sometimes we forget that he's only a third semester college student because of the success that he had as a freshman. But the one thing I will say is that he loves football and he loves to compete, and being home was very important to him. So I think he's going to be a great addition, and he has a chance to be a special type of player if he continues to develop.
Coach, it's probably a small sample size, but like over the last couple of seasons, as the transfer portal gets more and more active, is it getting tougher and tougher, specifically early season games, to be able to project what the other team's going to do with all these new faces just like you guys?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of not only for their team, our opponent's team, our team as well. The development aspect has changed a lot, and it's a lot of guys that are plug and play. So getting those guys up to speed very quickly on what we want to do, and a lot of recruiting on both sides for any team has really come down to position-specific needs and, the development process, much like the NFL is now. So you got to think of it in a bunch of different ways as you get guys out of the transfer portal, or you're developing young guys that are on your team, being detailed in how you coach them, and, having needs that we're trying to fill in certain situations. And sometimes it's not always who's the best player for that position. A lot of it comes down to needs. So I think it's a combination of things that we're trying to accomplish. But the unknown factor is always going to be there because there's so much turnover on everybody's roster in this day and age of football.
The versatility that you guys had when you were talking about nickel and corners, it looked like, did Alex do some where Jalen could play, or is it still going to be very interchangeable?
A lot of those guys in the secondary, we try to train them all to play two positions. And some of the guys that have been around for a long time, like Alex Hogan and Jalen, and then we've repped other guys in there. So a lot of position versatility, and whatever we need for those situations, we try to plug and play the guys that fit the best. And sometimes for us, it's not necessarily, and you've seen us in the past, it's not necessarily about what position you play. It's about us getting our best 5 or 6 guys on the field for situational football.
How do you feel about the leadership, internal leadership on this defense? And have you seen certain guys ever step up into those roles yet?
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I think Hassan Hippolyte has been a multiple-year team captain, and he's kind of one of the alphas, I think, on our team, and primarily on defense. And he brings a lot to the table, and he's played a bunch of different positions. He's got a lot of experience. He's kind of the fiery leader for us defensively. But I think the guy that's taken the biggest step in leadership role thus far is Nelson Caesar. We have high expectations for him on the field, but off the field, just a great person who loves his teammates, loves to compete. So he's done a really good job of filling the void up front and being one of the leaders up front. And then a couple older guys like Malik Robinson at linebacker, and then you look at guys like Chidozie, who is going into his 4th year of being a starter, who have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that they could pass down to other people. But a lot of it is just, you know, from a leadership perspective, it's not all based off of how you play, you know, and how you perform. A lot of it is based off how you carry yourself every day, the work ethic that you put in, and what else how you can impact the people around you. And so we talk about all those things often. And, you know, a lot of those guys have done a good job of stepping up and filling the void of a Donovan Mutin or a Derek Parrish, and so on and so forth.
Doug, a couple of weeks ago, Brian Early was telling us about, you know, a couple of years ago, you guys were 6th in sacks or something, and then last year, there was a drop-off because teams were getting rid of the ball a lot more, but then there was a stat where you still affected the quarterback on certain percentage. Have y'all addressed that? Is there a way that you can sort of get back to what y'all want to do like that? Does that having David, you know, in here now kind of help?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is schematics, you know, how we attack opposing offenses, and then, you know, some of it is the cat and mouse game with max protection that we weren't seeing in certain times, and some of it is, you know, the ball's out quick. So sometimes it's not always about sacking the quarterback, it's about how much that you can affect him and make him uncomfortable. And I think that's a consistent thing that we want to continue to try to build off of. And, you know, not so much for me, it's not so much about the statistics, but it's more, you know, how we can impact winning games, and hopefully those sack totals and quarterback pressures and knockdowns, and, you know, how we affect them, you know, on a play-to-play basis, that translates into production as far as wins and losses.
Is there another level for Nelson to get to, you know, on the field? He's obviously been impactful, but is there even another level we can get to?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, the sky's the limit for him this year. You know, it's been fun to watch him grow and develop, and what he's been able to accomplish on and off the field. He's just doing everything right and leading in the right way and being consistent, and also being accountable for everything that he does. But I think from a football perspective, you know, you look at the guys that he's played behind the last couple of years, and those guys in their senior year had a lot of production. You know, you're talking about Derek Parrish, David Anini, Logan Hall, Peyton Turner, DeAnthony Jones. You know, he's played behind all of those guys, and I think the last year for each one of those guys, the production was very high and the consistency was there. And they provided a lot of different things for the team, and not only defensively, but on special teams. So I think he's capable of doing a lot of those different things with his versatility and how he approaches the game.
One or two more. We've heard a lot about Isaiah Hamilton. Just the process of bringing him in. What was that like, and what sort of drew you to him?
Yeah, I mean, he's unique. You know, he was a guy from Channelview High School right here in the city that we kind of knew about. He ended up going to TSU, played really well over there. And once he got in the transfer portal, he had a couple other places that he had targeted. So we got on him and ended up getting that done. And him being a part of, you know, our program I think is going to be very beneficial for us. He's very talented, you know, from a physical standpoint, athletically. One of the most highly competitive guys that we have, and he possesses a lot of traits of an elite corner. So we just have to do a really good job of developing him. And I think he's much like A.J. Halsey, you know, a guy who's from right down the street. You know, his family's close. It means a lot to him to play at the University of Houston. So his development has been unbelievable in his short time here, you know, as far as the growth from a football perspective, the maturity as a man, and then you check in all the things that he's done, you know, as far as gaining 20 pounds or so, and developing in the weight room with our strength coach, who I think is doing an awesome job. And then his will to win and his will to compete is something that you got to have if you're going to be in a big-time corner, and he possesses those traits. So now it's just time for us to continue to see him grow and see what he does in game action. This will be our first time coaching him in a game, much like a lot of other guys on our team. So we're excited about him, and he's going to be around for a while. So we just got to continue to do a good job of developing him and push him in the right direction, because he's a highly competitive guy that wants to play. So we're excited about him.
What have you seen from Donovan Smith? Obviously, you played him last year, but now to see him every day in practice, you know, from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome for us defensively, but from a skill set, I think he possesses a pro skill set. I mean, from a stature standpoint, arm talent is through the roof, and I think he's improved tremendously since he's been here. And so, you know, the windows that he could fit the ball in, and then throwing the long ball, and then you add in the overall athleticism that he has to be able to extend plays, designed and undesigned. And then I think he's a very intelligent young man who's going to help us in a bunch of different ways. And I've seen his personality open up and grow, and him turn into a leader on our team. So I'm excited to see him play. I think he's much like last year at Tech. He's going to present a lot of problems for a lot of people that we play.
One more.
Doug, yesterday Daniel was saying that the times that y'all played, he thought Malik covered Tank as well as anyone did. To have a guy in the portal that you could get, how much did that help or impact what y'all wanted to do there at those spots?
Yeah, he's another guy. You know, I think him and David have played more snaps than anybody on defense for sure. And they come in with experience, they come in with a lot of knowledge, and they come in with a bunch of maturity. So as you attack the transfer portal or you're looking to fill needs, you know, for me personally, a lot of it had to do with maturity. A lot of it had to do with leadership and trying to fill voids that we lost over the last couple of years. But from a football standpoint, I mean, he has a lot of versatility. He's highly competitive, and he's kind of like a silent assassin because he doesn't say much, but he approaches everything the right way. And we're happy to have him. I think he'll be really big for our team, not only on defense, but also in the return game. That's another thing. He did a really good job of at East Carolina. And I think moving forward, that he'll do the same thing here. And he's fit in very well, great teammate, great person, and we've enjoyed having him as well.